Community Justice Reform Group, which, oh God, this isn't going. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. And our first order of business is an update on the land purchase, which, can you hear me now? Okay. Our first order of business is an update on the purchase of the land that we're looking at. We got a second appraisal done, and the state requires us to have 2 appraisals done of any land that we're buying. And we cannot offer a price that's higher than the average of those 2 appraisals. So with the second appraisal, it came in under the price that the seller was asking. But we went back to them and it sounds like they are willing to lower their price. So hopefully that will not be a problem. And then I just want to remind everyone that next Monday is the City Plan Commission where they'll be voting on the zoning for this land. And as for an update on the request for qualifications, which is for possible architects to work with us on the facility that we end up determining we want. And those, I don't believe we have received any of those yet. They're due on the 15th. And so we're hoping that at least sometime in December, we can have the 3 companies who we requested qualifications from come to a meeting and actually tell us quite a bit about what they do, how they envision things. And then, as I think you know, Julie and Commissioner Thomas and I went to Kentucky yes.
Commissioner Jones, could I, before we move on, could I have a question about?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you at all, April.
Commissioner Jones, I have a question about item 2 before we move on. Is this a good time?
About the request for qualifications?
Yes.
All right, if you could please speak loudly enough so I can hear you.
Yes. I was just wondering if the committee could have a copy of the requests for qualifications that were sent out.
Yeah, I can ask Jeff Cockrell to send that around.
Okay. And in that qualifications, my understanding is the way requests for qualifications work is that they're sent to a supplier or a vendor with a specific task that they're supposed to then share what their qualifications are to accomplish that task. Is that right?
I couldn't understand the first part of what you were saying, but yeah, basically we are just asking about their experience, what they've done in the past. I should imagine that we're going to be wanting to find out just how willing they are to work with different ideas and things like that. But basically it'll be an opportunity for them to present to us and for us to ask them questions.
And is it for a design of a new jail?
Pardon?
Is it for a design of a new jail?
Well, that's what we would be hiring them for, but we will not be discussing the actual design at that time, or at least I doubt that we will, because I don't think we're that far along yet.
Okay, so they're providing their qualifications on their ability to build a jail only.
On their ability to work with us to build a jail.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if we can move on to number 3 now. Julie, do you want to, you kind of took all the notes. This was a jail that is an old jail, but they've done a whole lot of very interesting things with programming. at it. And that's what we were mainly going to find out about. And Julie took a whole lot of notes on that, so I'll ask her to fill you all in.
Yes, and my notebook has since disappeared. So as soon as I find it, but I do remember because I wrote it, that helps me remember things. So it was a very enlightening conversation about how the staff at that jail facility may do with an older facility, but switching their focus to treatment. One of the things that they said they needed and that they had, and it made me think this is something that we need, is they have a really good support system post incarceration, especially related to sober living housing, transitional housing. And that's something I know that we need more of in this community. What's really great is they have programming that runs from small group to larger group to individual assistance. And the focus is on treatment and ensuring that when the person leaves a facility, they are clean and sober, and then providing that community infrastructure afterwards to help them stay that way, which means that recidivism is going to be lower, which is a great thing to hear. But they have utilized the community resources that they have to a really amazing extent in order to make this happen. And they have a number of staff members who are dedicated just to treatment, and a wing dedicated just to treatment. And it was really, really great to see that. That was the kind of thing that really sparked our curiosity after hearing Sam Quinones talk about it when he was here in Bloomington.
Yeah, it was a very worthwhile visit, I think. And then we also want an update on the mental health symposium that was a week ago last Friday. A number of us attended that. So maybe if we each want to take turns giving our impressions of what we heard. Jen, would you like to start off? Can I put you on the spot?
I know you keep staring. Oh, so thank you. So in terms of the mental health summit, it was quite interesting to hear that the state has it was interesting to hear how the state has a desire and a want to try to treat mental health. I know we all have our opinions about things related to the state. I know I definitely have mine in terms of, what leadership is doing and whatnot. So it was interesting to hear that aspect. And in talking to people around from all the other counties, everybody is experiencing some type of issue. And the general idea that I get is what some of us have continued to say, is that jail should not be a place to house those of mental health issues and those of substance use disorders. And so that's the idea. But we all are now saying, okay, so how do we fix it? We're at a pivotal moment right now where we're trying to figure out, how do we come to the crossroads of being transformative and progressive enough of making sure that we are reducing the recidivism by ways of treatment facilities and things like that. So I have hope that, things like that are coming, and would definitely like to see how we can do those things here in our county, if not waiting for the state, but to see how we can actually just set ourselves up so when the state officially comes through with funding, we're already ready to go. So that was some of my takeaways from it.
Thank you. Sam, you were there.
I was very happy to see the state Supreme Court, the governor's office really get involved in this. And I think it's going to take their involvement to be able to come up with some type of a solution. So I was very happy to see that. I'm not sure how it's going to work. You know, how they're going to get enough psychologists and enough peer support and things like that to actually make the cogs turn and work and mesh together. We have started seeing some relief in the jail with getting people out that need to go to facilities. The latest one was this past week, and he went to Hendricks County to one of the regional hubs. So I think it's starting to work, but I'm not sure how they're going to get all these hubs facilitated and staffed. And that's my biggest concern right now. And I would really like to see them, instead of waiting until the person gets arrested and brought to jail, start working on getting some avenues to get these people diverted prior to incarceration.
Thank you. Mr. Hunt, were you there? I didn't think so, but Erica, I believe you were.
Yeah, I was there. I hope I'm not sounding like I'm screaming. It feels loud to me. For me, this was in keeping with a lot of the state training that I have been doing since I've been involved previously with mental health court, drug treatment court, and a lot of our other problem-solving courts. And I think for me, it reaffirms that we do need to work on the resources that we have available to people when they are coming out of jail, hopefully before they're going into jail. Because, a lot of times, I think Sam would probably back me up on this, is, we are waiting for psychiatry appointments outside of jail. We just don't have enough resources in that regard. And so we really do need to find ways to support those professionals in our community so that we have those resources available in a more timely fashion. But I was also glad to hear that Monroe County was recognized as being, one of the communities that has a little bit better handle on some of these issues than some of our fellows across the state. So that was good to hear. Thanks.
Thank you. In April, I believe you were not there. Okay. It was Monroe County all got together for lunch there, and it was a huge long table, and I was at one end and wasn't totally sure who was at the other end. And I don't believe you were there, were you? No. Okay. And Julie wasn't. Laurie, okay. Well, one of the things that really struck me about it was that they kind of emphasized over and over how important it is to actually have clear data about what's going on in the system. And they talked a whole lot about there being a public facing data board so that dashboard, so that the public can easily see what progress we're making, hopefully. And this is something that we had already identified as being really important, but it was really good to just get the backing of the whole group that we were headed in the right direction. Monroe County was mentioned several times as being a county that's already thinking along the right lines and will hopefully be getting there. And does anyone who wasn't there have any questions? Oh, Peter, I didn't see you earlier. I was hoping you were there.
That's all right. I apologize for not being there in person. I have a sickness that's going around, so I took notes during the meeting, and I could send that around if need be.
I know you're a very prolific note taker, so if you could do that, it would be greatly appreciated.
Wonderful.
All right, if there's nothing else on that. Well, we've really kind of covered the public facing dashboard. That's something we're still working on. The proposal that is in front of you talks about a dashboard. I have to talk to her and find out whether or not she's really thinking of all the different sources of data that we want her. She's just looking in particular at the correctional facility, because we do want dashboard that has information from the courts, from the correctional center, from probation, and really gathering the information we need to see how we're actually doing. And that brings me to the proposal right in front of you, which I'll send around later. I'm sorry, I just haven't had time yet. And there's both a scope of work and the agreement. And I haven't had a chance, this is a second iteration of the agreement, and I haven't had a chance to look, oh wait, right here. Well, look, initially they wanted a fairly large sum in advance, which is something that the county is not allowed to do, but when that was explained to them, they were going to correct it and make it monthly billing. And other than that, I'd appreciate it if everyone would look through these and let me know what you think of them, or actually let the group know what you're thinking about them. One of the things, let's see, they're talking about starting in December. And my thought is that it might be better for them to wait until January to start. At that point, there will be some changes and all, and I think that would probably get them off to a better start.
Can I just share something with you,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones? I noticed in here, there's some discussion about probation statistics.
About what?
About probation statistics. I wasn't sure if you were aware that they did a reducing revocations challenge. The Monroe County Probation Department is participating in that. So I know there's already a lot of statistics there. So that just as you're working through.
I'm sorry, I'm not catching what you're saying at all.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, I don't listen fast, sorry.
I just wanted to share with you that the Monroe County Probation Department is already participating in the Reducing Revocations Challenge. And I know that there's already statistics on probation. So I just wanted to share that with you as you're collecting data to see where this collection might be duplicative of what we already have and how you can connect those two. I just wanted to share that with you.
Yes, yeah, we were actually quite aware of that. Of course, we signed the contract for it. And then also have been in touch with Miriam Northcutt Bomer, who has been working with probation for a while on this. And I'm just not sure at this point if her information can just be incorporated on a general dashboard, or if we're actually going to look at hiring someone to really bring it all together. That's something we're going to have to explore a little bit further. And does anyone have any other questions about that or comments or anything?
This is separate from the work they're supposed to give us a proposal for related to getting data before the end of the year, correct?
Well, I think that where we're at right now is that the Center for Collaborative Systems Change has said that they intend to create a dashboard for us. We also know that Eric Grauman has been working with the courts collecting data, and that Miriam Northcutt Bomer has been working with probation collecting data. And I don't know if they can just be brought in with this Center for Collaboration, or if we're going to have to hire them separately, or maybe even hire someone differently who would just pull together all the data and create a dashboard. Yeah.
So I haven't had a chance to fully read this over,
No,
but
I'm sorry.
is this different than the data that's in the report that we already? county
Yes,
already-
yes, it's quite.
How is
different.
it different?
Well, most of it's been collected since that report was done.
But is it the same type of data that's in that report?
No, well, no, not necessarily. Apparently probation has particularly strong data. They have a very good system of collecting it, and that's going to be extremely useful. We're still waiting on the other components of it to get a sense of where they're at.
And that wasn't included in the 600-page report we have?
No,
Okay.
none of it was. Anyone else?
So are we no longer focusing on the issues that were raised in the report? The one that came out last
One
year?
of the things that was raised in the report was the fact that our data collection is not very good at all and needs to be improved. So I really see this as focusing on the report. I think that without good data, we are going to have a hard time moving forward in a way that is predictably successful and that we can also track and see how successful it is.
Sorry, I'm just glancing over this. Is it a year that you're collecting data then? 12 months? following?
Yes. Yep.
And then
the
what?
ass- The assumption is that if it goes well, we can continue the contract, right? I mean, that's
Yes.
because we can't contract out more than a year on this kind of work. But if it's the data we need, and if, if it happens to not be the data that's useful to everyone at this table, then we can change the scope. We can find a different agency if we need to, right?
Right. Yeah, this is,
But then what are we doing with it, I guess? That's
what are
what
we
we're-
doing?
With the data.
We're going to create this public facing dashboard. And basically the data will be a way that we and the public can follow what's actually going on and see whether or not we're being successful.
Okay. How does that fit into like building or not building a new facility though? Does
Because some of the-
does that put it down a year down the road? Like we're not even gonna start?
No, it doesn't. No, or at least we hope it doesn't. At this point, it's really a little early to say for sure, but we think that whatever direction we go in, this data is going to continue to be very necessary so we can see if we're actually improving things.
So I noticed in here that it was focused on, for those incarcerated on
I'm
probation.
sorry, I can't hear you, Abel.
It looks like the data is primarily focused on probation. And when someone is incarcerated, how they're accessing services while they're in jail. Is that the right scope?
Pretty much. They're also planning to contact families of people who have been incarcerated and talk to them about it. This is an attempt to find out from people who have actually experienced the system, what their experience is in the overall system, not, just any one particular part of it.
I was just wondering about the inclusion of pretrial release statistics.
Of what?
Of pretrial release statistics, which was
Oh,
noted
yeah.
in the study. It just wasn't included in here and I wasn't sure if it was part of that scope.
I have not yet had a chance to discuss this with them, but it's something that I would certainly expect to be included.
I think we could have added to the dashboard any other data we want,
Yeah,
but we're not currently collecting this data, right? In the scope that has been proposed. We do have data on pretrial release. We have other data. We don't publicize it, and the idea is to publicize it, and you can add more to the dashboard, right? So if we already have data, we don't need them to collect it, but it could be added potentially to the dashboard,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
This is about getting that information, creating the dashboard, and if we want to add something else to it where we already collected the data, we could do that if that's the decision. Does that make sense? Okay,
Yes.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment, and I'm not advocating one way or another for a new facility, but I know we have this report that says that the facility we have is structurally unsound. And as someone who's been in the jail as a public defender, and then also someone who works in the building, I have concerns about that. If we're looking to go another year or something without doing anything to the current jail.
No, no, we are not. This data is going to be important however we go forward. And I think that generally there's a feeling that we don't want to wait and leave people in the condition that they're in our current facility. We want to move ahead with that as quickly as we can, but at the same time, we want to collect this kind of data, both to see what has happened in the past and to keep track of what happens in the future so that we can tell whether or not things are improving.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't ask that very well, but what's the plan to make the jail structurally sound while we're waiting for whatever these studies are and whatever the data is we need to collect?
Yeah, if you would, please.
yeah. So we did put money into the bond for next year, the general obligation bond, that will be spent as needed to ensure continued operations. But it's evident to all of us that we have to build a new facility. I was probably the last person to get dragged along on this because I kept saying, let's remodel. There's no way to do it. And so we have to build a new facility, but we do have money sitting aside in case, if we have to buy locks or hinges, and Sam knows this story. So there's a long list of things that bond money can be spent on, but we will not spend it, for example, to replace all the locks if they're not all malfunctioning, or the hinges if they're not all because that would be a waste of resources, taxpayer resources. So the money is there if we need it to ensure that it is sound, but it does not delay our constitutional responsibility to build a new facility. Does that help?
Yes, I think so. Anything else? Yes, that was a good question.
So what is the committee's next steps in addressing the report saying that the jail cannot maintain constitutional standards of care?
I think the next steps are buying the land and getting the zoning. We have yet to receive our report on site conditions. These things will all be the next step before we can really tell whether we even have a location for it.
And once there's a location, then we use the request for qualifications to choose who we're going to work with. And we need to give them direction about everything related to the facility. Their job is not to tell us what we need. Their job is to create what we ask them to create. And so that would be, and then move forward. We will have to work with the council on bonding, and that would probably be the edit money. And then, and we have to move forward as commissioners because we own all the facilities in the county. We're responsible for all the capital in the county. And so we would have to move forward and hopefully get something done sooner rather than later. The question of how big, how much treatment, how many resources can we plug in to focus on treatment over incarceration? That's the key. And that's where we're going to have to make some big decisions, probably I would say by the beginning of the end of December,
Yes.
if planning and zoning works out with the city, or in the new year, if we have to find a different property. So we're kind of, there's a lot of plates spinning at one time, but at the same time, there is a process that we have to go through related to all of this. And when a facility design is arrived at, we will be holding a public hearing as well on that as commissioners, because that's what we want to do. So there are a lot of steps, right? But meanwhile, you keep thinking about, do we want, how much treatment can we put in this facility? How few regular cells do we use? And how do we ensure we have enough mental health care? And what resources do they need? And how many classrooms do we need? And how is this going to be designed for safety of both those who are incarcerated and the officers who work there? And, how do we make sure that when the judges have to go into that courtroom, that they're safe? And how do we make sure that defense attorneys are safe? And what access does the prosecutor need? And how much of the clerk's office goes there? And how much of the sheriff's office goes there?
Yeah.
There are a lot of questions that are going to have to be addressed, but we cannot change the order of the process that has to happen based on our requirements in state statute.
I just wanted to say, I really appreciate that, because I was a little unclear, because the Center for Collaborative Systems Change proposed scope of work you just handed us says, although it is undetermined as to whether a new jail will be built. So I thought that it was still unclear whether or not a new jail would be built. So a new jail will be built. The question is timing and addressing each of the components.
Right. And how much of each component do we need? Can we go 80% treatment, 20% incarceration? Can we go, can we make it flexible? Can we address the needs of the community safety, but then as well address the needs of individuals? That's the key. And that's going to be the big decisions we're going to have to make.
And at this point, we can say that it's certainly our intention to move ahead with a new jail. It's just, as Julie said, we have to go through the particular process in the way that's required of us.
Where do you think transportation falls within that process? Because
Right.
I know a lot of us have a lot of concerns about the location of the facility. It's going to be 4 miles away from downtown. There's some real concerns
Right.
about transportation of people and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week throughout the year who may not have access to clothes that are the same season that they entered the jail in. So just worried about those vulnerabilities. When do you think that fits into the program?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely part of what we're going to have to solve, no matter where this goes. We're going to
Yeah.
have to solve that problem.
That is the problem. There is no other place within the city limits where we can do this. If this doesn't work out, then we have to go outside of the city limits, which means that transportation becomes even a little more complicated. But that is a soluble problem. That's something that we can, once we know where we're going and that things are more definitive, then that's the problem we can start working on.
Right. And again, we've had conversations with Bloomington Transit. Fullerton Pike's not even built yet, but it will be built by the time facility is built. And so that will probably impact Bloomington Transit anyway, whether there's a facility there or not, because Fullerton is going to be a major interchange going east-west from the highway east into the southern part of the city. But we recognize that transportation involves family, it involves support staff, it involves obviously safely transporting people who are being held, who need to go to court. It involves a lot of aspects, and it involves that transitional housing side of it and making sure that people are treated in a humane way and are given opportunities to flourish after they've had to deal with the criminal justice system, and that they don't ever have to return. Providing those resources is key. And that involves in a sense, transportation as well. So it's all connected. We get it, but we certainly can't do anything until we have a site. right? That's one of the things we have to take in order. We can't do anything about transportation until we know where we're going. But we clearly have some options. We have other options and plans in place that we will pursue if we can't work with Bloomington Transit for some reason. So there are other options. It doesn't mean that if it's not in the city, we're out of luck.
Are the commissioners planning on doing a study about the fiscal impact of transporting inmates back and forth from a non-collated facility for at least the next 5 to 10 years?
One of the things that we learned in Kentucky is that the way they have a similar situation, and the way they handle it is their courthouse has a secure area, I think in the bottom, towards the bottom of it. And in the morning, everyone who is going to be going to court is provided with a sack lunch. They're all taken at once to this secure place in the courthouse. They go to the courtrooms as they're needed and back to the secure place. And once court is over with, they're all picked up and taken back to the facility. So that's a problem. And basically, we already have a secure place in our courthouse. That may be something we'll want to be doing a bit of remodeling for, or something like that. But that's not going to be an unmanageable problem for us.
But at the same time, with a new facility, you need much less direct staff serving as officers. And I know Sam could talk about this too. Some of the numbers of their staff were much lower than our numbers. And it's because of the way our facility set up. So on the one hand, we will need fewer officers in a facility working one-on-one with incarcerated individuals. But then that also will free up some opportunity for that transport that's going to have to happen until we can, if the decision's made to co-locate, create a justice campus.
Thank you. That's very
Yeah.
helpful, because I know the jail staff's down right now. So
Yeah,
that's going to have to be addressed. Thank you.
sure.
Okay, if there's nothing else, the next thing on the agenda is updates on the surveys that hopefully people are planning and figuring out who to talk to or send them to.
I'll update on the BOJ.
Okay, great.
Judge Stafford is judging moot court tonight, and Judge Fawcett's on Zoom because she had a sick child, but we've done a survey and sent it out to all the staff of the Board of Judges. So
Great.
hopefully we'll have that fairly soon. And when I say we, I think Judge Stafford developed the survey and sent it out. So
Excellent.
Yes, that's great to hear. And please thank Judge Stafford.
I will. Thank you.
really appreciate her taking the initiative.
You probably have the easiest task though, with the smallest number of people to really contact. So, but it's still going to be so valuable to have that data. And we appreciate the time it took to write up that survey
Yeah.
for sure.
And Erica, have you guys been able to,
Hi.
April?
I actually have an update for 3 different groups. Karen and I will plan on working together because we're going to cover 3 different groups: the Monroe County Bar Association, the Prosecutor's Office, and the Public Defender's Office. Thank you for sending those questions so we can work off of them. She and I, due to scheduling, are going to meet next week is what I'm planning, and kind of finalize those questions. I'll also take a look at the Board of Judges questions to make sure that we're trying to be consistent so we can get more consistent data. My question for you, to make sure we're doing this the way that you'd like, is we're solely focusing on 2 areas. One, jail design, and that's literally the facility and structure itself. We're not talking about courtroom needs, technological needs in the building. For example, the courtroom is in severe need of some technological updates, but that's not as part of the jail facility, correct?
It would be, I think
Basically that if people have specific ideas about courtrooms, we want to hear them. We want to hear what people are thinking about this.
I think you're referring to our current court facility, right? That you're saying that there are some ideas out there for what remodels are needed at the Charlotte T. Zitlow Justice Center. Is that what you're suggesting? Or is this about a non-co-located facility and what's needed?
My understanding is that you wanted us to do a survey for this new jail facility. And it was only covering two topics: jail design of this new facility, possibly at Fullerton Pike, or co-location. I'm just
We-
commenting on if there's also some suggestions on courtroom safety, courtroom design, and it sounds like you want more than those two categories. Could you tell me the categories that you would like in the survey so I can make sure I cover all of them?
We did actually say that the questions were just suggestions, and we would like for you to, I mean, you all are the experts in your particular areas. If you know there are questions that should be asked that we didn't think of, then please include them.
Yeah. And it could be about the current Charlotte T. Zitlow Justice Building, and if changes are needed there, let us know. If there's anything that we need to know as we plan a physical space at the new facility, tell us that. If there's programming, tell us that. I think anything is on the table related to all of this reform effort, because it's a huge effort.
Yeah, it's a huge, I think that it's easy right now, and it's very unfortunate that things happened in this way, but it's easy to forget the fact that we're actually looking for reform of the entire system. And we aren't just focusing on the jail. Now, because we found out that the situation with the jail is so bad, we feel that we do have to move quickly on that. But we are not giving, that doesn't mean that we're giving up on all the other parts of it. Those are still extremely important parts. So basically, this particular survey is to help us determine the actual physical facility. And I would say what happens in it. So please include any questions that you think would be relevant to your area that we haven't come up with. And if it doesn't have to do specifically with the jail, we're still interested. We'll just keep it in mind.
I think it would be great to add something that says anything else you want to add,
Yeah,
and a big box, and let folks have at it. If we don't need that information now, we can tuck it away and use it later for something. I don't think there's any harm in that if people are willing to fill out that form.
yeah, I think.
Okay,
that's-
well, I'll add those extra areas. Is there an intent to remodel the current justice building?
No,
Okay, so I want to include that. I would say that that won't be able to be accomplished by November 15th, especially since I need to expand it. And we have a lot of people who would be responding to it because it's inclusive of the
that
entire
was
bar.
actually Judge Stafford's suggestion, and we initially said it would be okay by the end of the year.
End of the year would be great.
And I still think
yeah.
that if we can get it by the end of the year, that would be great.
Okay.
I know everyone's busy and we don't want to just dump a whole lot of extra work on you, asking you to produce it immediately.
Perfect. And then I noticed on the list that we're not surveying victims. And which portion of the Justice Committee will be looking into surveying victims?
To surveying who?
Victims of offenses?
Yeah, that's got to be done. We have a list of other constituencies we need to talk to, and we have to figure out how we're going to do that. We have not mapped out our plan yet. My hope was that this group was going to be able to help us do some community surveying, and I don't know if they are or not. So we'll have to talk
Well,
through that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Hunt, do you have anything to add? Okay. And Sam?
Yes, excuse me. In the email that was sent out, I don't think the sheriff was included. I don't think his email was included, so it
I
didn't go to
noticed
him.
that, yes. that
And I
was
know that
unfortunate.
there was some questions that you wanted him to ask of other law enforcement agencies. So two things on that. One, the current sheriff, his term will end the end of this year. So he's, speaking on his behalf, he's hesitant to make decisions that are going to affect the new sheriff and
Mhm.
their term.
Yes,
So, with the election tomorrow, I think it would be a good idea to send an email to the current sheriff and then whoever wins the election tomorrow to get them started and get them included in this process. Because the jail is the sheriff's responsibility.
yes.
So I think we need to make sure that we include them in
Yeah.
this discussion.
And when you get a chance to read this, you'll notice that the proposal is very dependent on cooperation with the sheriff. So we will certainly be including him. I hadn't realized that his email wasn't on the original one, which I just copied for Margie. So
I would just, oh gosh, I feel like I'm
Yes.
screaming every time. I would just say that to the extent that the current sheriff or the lucky new sheriff needs a hand with any of the other law enforcement officers, I'm happy to serve as a liaison and help as I can to get those surveys done. So just let me know.
Thank you. And I will add that the Commissioner's Administrative Assistant, Angie Purdy, is going to be surveying, and she's actually already sent her survey to TSD for them to turn it into
Survey Monkey.
Survey Monkey. Yes, I was forgetting that name. And she's going to be surveying all the different law enforcement agencies that will be affected by this.
So, and so we will definitely have her reach out to you if she needs assistance. That's great. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. And I don't think either of you were assigned any surveys. Do you have anything you want to add? All right. Lori,
Miss-
I don't think we did. I think we know, I think what we said is we want to have a discussion with you. And that probably should happen at some point to find out exactly how you do intersect with how public health intersects with the jail and the jail population.
I was
Sam?
just going to throw out there that Jennifer is the liaison from the county
Mhm.
council, so she can feel free to help the jail out, as the liaison with these questions.
Are you going to say thank you, Jen?
It's nice to be voluntold.
Okay, and then,
I do have one question.
oh, yes.
Julie was saying that you didn't have any plans to remodel the Justice Building as it is now. I think you're
The jail.
probably,
The jail.
The jail and,
well, what about the building? Because there's other
well.
I'm only asking because we have frequent floods in the building, which
Yeah.
I'm sure you're aware.
Yes.
A couple weeks ago, my ceiling tiles collapsed and water was
Mhm.
coming down. So I feel like there's probably mold in the building. And I just didn't know when we're talking about co-location or not. And that can be a discussion for later, but.
Yeah.
I think that's a discussion for later. I think that there have been a lot of problems with that building, and we're probably going to want to put quite a bit of thought into it once we know exactly what direction we're heading in.
Could I add, could you fix the front door? Just as a,
Pardon?
could I add if we could fix one of the front doors? If
Oh.
as a,
The front doors?
one of the front doors is,
All
it's the
right.
top that doesn't slowly, so it slams. So they've just locked it. And with 1,000 people coming every day, it might be helpful to fix that as well.
We can talk to David Gardner about that. All right, then at this point, I think Jen and Julie have a presentation, well,
Yeah.
a presentation to make.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll pass this way if you pass that way. So here, I'll give you one and she'll get the rest. It felt like we had a conversation. It felt like to us that we're all on the same page about a lot of things. But we thought it would be useful to actually think through what are our guiding principles for this committee? What are we trying to achieve? The how we'll have to talk through at each stage. But this is about what guides us in that decision-making process. And so we came up with a list of questions, or not questions, sorry, statements. The first one being treatment is a priority over incarceration. This will require that we build sufficient community infrastructure, 0 and 6 on our scale that we use, and develop sufficient space and programming options within the jail facility. Number 2, develop Monroe County's justice system with a unique facility while meeting constitutional and humanitarian requirements. Number 3, address inequities in race, economic status, sexual orientation, and gender. And number 4, reduce the number of people entering the criminal justice system and reduce recidivism for those who are or were in the system. And so, do you want to add something?
No, I think this pretty much sums it up. But as Julie was saying, no, at least what I gather from this particular committee, I feel like there is this narrative out here that the only thing that we're focused on is just solely the facility. And I would be confident in saying, and I hope I would be confident in saying that that is not the goal of this particular committee. And I think, you know, having this principle and these guidelines, such as what you had mentioned, like what you had mentioned earlier in terms of, well, then what are we really doing? I think that's been a big confusion for a lot of people and maybe general and people of the public is, so you have this committee. So what is this committee supposed to be doing? Are you focused on the facility? Are you not focused on the facility? Do you know how big, how small, where it's going, all of those different things? But I think for this particular committee, the goal is those things we can't focus on until we think about these 4 points. And I think that will all play into what a new facility will look like or other options of facilities in terms of treatment facility centers and whatnot. So I think it was important for us to come together as the committee. And of course, if anybody else here has any types of additions that we should add to these things that aren't listed, this is a general synopsis of what it is that we should be focused on. And of course, this isn't just the only thing that we want to. So if there's something that's missing that, you know, we should be focused on in terms of facilities and thought process and however we're thinking of this is something that we wanted to just come together and say, okay, committee, this is what we have. Now, let's truly hone in on this so that we can start thinking of other key components if that is the way that we decide to go.
Yeah, and yeah, so our hope is that we can discuss this at our next meeting and see, you know, if you have anything to add, things you want to delete, any edits you want to suggest. I think that would be incredibly useful to have that conversation, because if we are all working from the same guiding principles, then the how, then we've covered the why, and then the how becomes our focus. And it helps to have that basic agreement to begin with. We're not trying to dictate the guiding principles, but we certainly felt like that's where these are things that we've all talked about at some point in this process. And so we just kind of combine those ideas together.
Yeah, I think we need to work on that now instead of planning all this 3 years down the road or 4 years down the road.
Mhm.
You know, I have no problem with trying different programs, with trying different things within the jail right now, so we can get a good foothold before we get to a new facility. So, you know, I am open to suggestions, different types of programming, and we are currently looking at starting some new programs. But as you know, I'm shorthanded, so it makes things really hard at the current time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think we need to focus for now and work towards the future. So.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's a great point.
certainly gives us a chance to find out what's really effective
Mhm.
and what maybe is less so. That would be very helpful.
Yeah.
And so any ideas you have of something, please let us know about them.
Yeah.
You said you're looking at starting some new programming now. What, do you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Well, Monroe County probably has one of the most robust mental health programs in the state for a jail its size. We have 2 licensed clinical social workers and a psychiatric nurse practitioner that are on staff. The LCSWs are there 80 hours a week, full-time positions. The LCS or the nurse practitioner is there 4 hours a week. With part of those hours, we want to utilize them to start doing some training and programming with people that have mental health issues. We haven't got everything put into order yet on how we're going to do that. But we do have some ideas and we're working towards it. And
Great. Do you have the space for it?
that's one of the things we're looking at, and that's one of our concerns.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I think space is obviously an issue, and of course, personnel and resources are going to be the other one. And
there's space issues, there's personnel issues, and then there's security issues.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of the security issues that we have currently is dealing with specific individuals who have severe mental health issues. So they take up a lot of resources, a lot of time, and we have some space available, but it's a dorm type setting. And I can't put those people in there because of safety issues. So we're trying to look and move people around. When you have a housing management program or housing locations, whatever, it always has to be fluid so we can move people around and shuffle people. So we're working on that right now.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have anything else to add?
I just wanted to add, I really appreciate your comments, and especially about programming. I would once again invite anyone on the committee to come follow the prosecutor's office or follow the public defender's office for a day in court. Programming is something that we're frequently talking about, and bail reviews, when we talk about release decisions, at pretrial conferences, and trying to figure out dispositions. And there's a lot of challenges that we're facing when it comes to programming that I think we're trying to share with you so we can address them to have more options that balance reaching that treatment and also safety of the community. So I just once again want to invite everyone. It's sometimes not something you can pick up in a survey, but being in the courtroom and hearing some of those conversations where we have people who are waiting months to be able to be connected to treatment. It's not that we don't have it. It's just that when the backlog might be months before we can connect them, they may pick up another charge between their ability to make their appointment and being released from jail. And that creates real barriers that we could use help in addressing. So I appreciate it.
can I comment on that? I appreciate that. I think you make a really great point, and I think one of the things that was disturbing to me and to some of my colleagues around this table is that the city administration came out and made a video and offered an op-ed, and they're like, oh, put $5 million into this. Like, where? We don't have the space, and it just demonstrated that there's a lack of listening going on, and we really need to be working together. Collaboration means, what can I do to help? Not what can I tell you how to, I want to tell you how to do something. We already know we want to focus on treatment over incarceration. So to have somebody in the city saying, oh my gosh, you really need to focus on treatment over incarceration. Yeah, we're already there. We already know this. Thank you. But we don't have the space, and we don't have the personnel, and where would we do this? And it ignores a lot of the groundwork that's been done by folks at this table. And I think it's not a good thing to walk over the work that's being done here and say, well, I'm going to tell you how it should be. Read the reports, read the studies, pay attention to what we're talking about here. Instead of scolding us, converse with us. And and we are going to need assistance. We're going to need to hear from law enforcement on the surveys, for example. We want to hear from every Bloomington Police Department officer. We'd love to hear from every one of them on that survey, you know? I'm sure we will. I'm sure we'll hear from many of them anyway. You know, that's what collaboration is. It's not, you know, we'll tell you what to do and how to spend your money because we know best. It's, hey, we are in the lead here, right? We don't need a backseat driver telling us, great, I'm glad you took that right turn. You know, we already took the right turn. So I just think it's not helpful to have that kind of conversation going on outside of our committee. And I absolutely believe that having guiding principles established that we all are comfortable with will help us convey to the community what we are doing. We don't have public relations people who work for the county. So we don't do this, but this is a one way to convey to the public what our focus is. And I know there's a lot of concern in the public and people say, well, don't build a new jail. Well, you know, constitutionally, we have to, but the question is, how do we do it? And what's included? And how do we make this a unique system in Monroe County that we're going to be getting visitors from all over the state and all over the Midwest, just like we're visiting all of these facilities, so they can learn from us, because we can do a heck of a lot better. And we have to do a heck of a lot better. We have different challenges now than they had in the 80s. We know this, right? We all know this. And so I think if we're all on the same page, which I believe we are, because these are things we've all talked about, then the specific data points and the process is what we talk about here, rather than what's our goal. We know what our goal is, right? So that's why we're doing this, but I appreciate the moment to respond to the city administration.
Thank you. And I do want to mention for the public that there is a link on the Monroe County website, which is, I always forget.
Oh, I will look it up.
monroe.co.in.us. And that will, any email to that will come to everyone on this committee. And we are inviting the public to please let us know what you're thinking about this. And with that, Kate and Peter, did you have anything to add? Or is Kate still here?
See if Jen had something to add. I don't know.
Oh, Jen, did you have something? I'm sorry.
No, I think Julie pretty much summed it up. I know I had went to the city council meeting last week in light of opinions and whatever you know, that are out there. Is this committee perfect? Absolutely not. But I see that the gears are grinding, and I want to believe that we are we're trying. I know, you know, we have public that's here, and public, this is the biggest crowd that I've seen that have come in. And I appreciate the fact that, you know, we might have difference of opinions that are out here, but at least we're still trying to hear from the public and what they have to say. So I appreciate that. And I also would, you know, appreciate any true collaborative work. Are we going to get this, there's going to be so many opinions about everything that we're doing. At times, you know, we might question ourselves. Are we doing the right thing? Are we not doing enough? Are we doing too much? Those are lots of things that are going on, but I think that we can hold ourselves accountable in this committee. And I also look to folks here out in the public and via Zoom and beyond that will help us and hold us accountable. So that's it.
Thank you. Peter, Kate, did you have something to say?
I just want to thank Julie and Jen for their work on those statements and trying to get the word out about what we're doing and why we're doing it, that kind of thing. So thank you.
Yes. And Peter?
I'm really interested in hearing from the public on all of these issues, but I think this could all be summed up. Read the reports. We commissioned 2 really great reports. They're really solid. Read the reports. That's a great roadmap for what we need to do.
Very good. Thank you. And if no one has anything else to add, I believe we can move to public comment. If anyone from the public would like to speak, we do need to limit you to 3 minutes. And you can come up and be at a microphone. And I'm not sure that anyone is anxious to say anything at this moment. If you could please state your names.
Hi, Debbie Fish. I'm Chair of the Hope for Prisoners Task Force at the Unitarian Universalist Church, Bloomington. And since no one wanted to come up here and say who they are, we kind of represent several groups. There are some people here who are formerly incarcerated and they have opinions and at another time may want to share some of those. There's also people from Care Not Cages who are very interested in what's being built and how, and that it will be more about care. Let me see. I'm also in a group representing the local NAACP that's supposed to look at the report and kind of report back to them. Have I covered us all? I think so. So this is the first time, I guess, we've all been here. We're kind of on the late show, but there are a lot of people who are very interested, and I think you'll find that in the future that we'll be here.
Thank you very much. And I hope everyone will please encourage anyone to let us know what their opinions are about this. Please.
We actually have some people that are on Zoom, so I'm not sure if it's best to try to alternate between here
Oh.
and Zoom. I see 3 hands that are raised in Zoom.
Well, since you're at the table.
No, I'm
please,
fine to wait on the Zoom comments. So,
We'll get to the Zoom.
Oh,
as soon
okay.
as-
all right. You've heard from me once. Donielle Bird. I am a social worker and lived in this community since 1988. Also in providing direct services to a lot of people who are criminal justice involved through DCS as well. I was a school social worker and I'm a parent of a child who has been incarcerated in Monroe County Jail. And I appreciate the concern for the constitutional care of the individuals in Monroe County Jail. And I appreciate the concern that folks are stating that they want services for folks who are caught up in the criminal legal system. We do incarcerate above the national average of people with mental health and substance use disorders here in Monroe County, where I keep hearing we're so wonderful. We have a long way to go. But I just, a personal story I could just share that really highlights what I want to emphasize is that my child who has mental health and substance use issues, the argument from the prosecutor's office was that he remain incarcerated rather than to get treatment outside the jail because there was treatment available in the jail. So I think there are some unintended consequences here that I want to highlight for folks. Jail is not a good place for people to receive mental health or substance use disorder treatment. And I would emphasize more than anything than this building that 70
$70+ million could be spent on many more things that are public health related outside of a cage. We don't need to cage people to get help. I am concerned with public safety, just as everyone is, but jailing people is not shown to improve public safety. So I'm just here to say, I still do not believe we need a new jail. I've been in the jail. My child has been there. I know it needs work. But I don't think that the majority of people are there on pretrial holds. I mean, I just don't think we need that many people. And there is space. There can be space for folks to come in if we have less individuals incarcerated. And there currently is space. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And Katz, can we see or TSD, can we see the Zoom menu? The attendee list?
So I've passed around, just so everybody knows, I'm passing around a piece of paper with our public audience and asking those of the folks who are here who are willing to help get a good survey done, if they would provide us their name and email, which they're circulating that right now, which I think would be great. So I appreciate that.
Jen, I believe you can see who, if you would
Yes.
like to call on them, please.
Yes, I see, first that we have is Jim Shelton. So,
Hello, Mr. Shelton.
Good afternoon. Hi, Jim Shelton. I'm speaking really as a CASA. I've been a CASA for 10 years here in 5 days. And every case I've had, at least one of the parents has been incarcerated. So I'm very interested in this. I've been following it a lot. I applaud what you're doing so far. I think it's you're really getting organized and things are starting to really move, which is great. Just a suggestion to make, and maybe there's a good reason for this, but for some reason, Katz is no longer covering your meetings either live or video where you can go watch them. So your public awareness of what is going on is dramatically reduced as a result of that. And your opportunity to get input from people is dramatically reduced from that. I mean, I think right now it shows there's 8 attendees on Zoom right now. And I don't know how many people are in the audience, but I'm sure it's less than 20. And that's all they're gonna know what happened here today. So I don't know what's going on with that. But if you could somehow get Katz to cover them again, I think you'd be better off. But thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Actually, we were not aware of the fact that Katz was not covering this. So that's something that I can do something about immediately.
it's
and hope-
actually on live right now.
Pardon?
It's on right now. It's
Oh.
live.
Okay.
Mhm.
And Commissioner Thomas, hi, it's Molly and Commissioner Jones. And I will add that the meeting link is available on the county website. A link to the Zoom is usually up within 48 hours. So if Katz isn't recording it, the Zoom link where you can watch the recording is up on our the county website.
Yeah, that's
Thank
great.
you. Yeah.
Thanks,
that's-
Molly.
That's a good point. Thank you. Anyone else, Jen?
Mhm. Let me go back to my Zoom. Okay, so it looks like Renee Miller has her hand raised.
Ms. Miller?
Good evening. Excuse me. I'm going to do an abbreviated statement. I just want to say that treatment centers are not jails. Even if they're court ordered, they're still not jails. A jail is a jail. It's a cage, and a treatment center offers a whole lot more. Our legal system is harming more than helping right now. And by not considering just how much harm is being done to people suffering from mental illness, we already all know that we need to do that. Post-incarceration syndrome is much like PTSD and causes more harm and far more than the 1 or 2 that are helped. I keep hearing, oh, if we only help just one person, then it's worth it. not if we're helping one person and harming 99. So in other words, we're doing more harm than good. So there's that. We already know we as a nation and state incarcerate far more than many other states. Indiana has seen a 261% increase in locking people up. We are doing something wrong and it's time to fix it. We all agree with that. We need to find ways to help, not to harm. Building a very expensive, posh, large jail located away from services, and imprisoning more and more people who need the opposite will continue to cause more harm instead of addressing ways in which we can stop the snowball from rolling downhill and getting bigger. The money could be spent far better on programs. So now I want to talk about a couple programs. The state of Indiana has a couple treatment centers that are really, really good. The Hickory treatment centers in Indiana are very good. I know I have a niece that has gone through that treatment center herself. She was there for 30 days and she is coming up on 8 months of sobriety. And I'm very proud of her. She's employed. She's now doing really well. And I have some other people that I know that are also doing really well that have gone through Hickory treatment centers. So what my thought is why don't we use some money, some county money and build treatment centers instead of jails, or in addition to a jail, because I know that you have to do that. Although I think you could actually fix the one we have. It will be expensive, but not as expensive as some cockamamie disaster waiting to happen, like the current trajectory that we're on. So let's just think about that. Let's think outside the box. Let's build some treatment centers. We've been talking about it for years. Why we don't have one yet, I'm not sure, but it's time. And that's, I think, all I have to say for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
May I?
please
Okay.
respond.
Yeah, just for the public's information, there is, at the same time that we're doing this, there is a significant movement for change going on within the state of Indiana. Do I trust that it's going to happen the way it's been outlined? No, but I'm still very hopeful. A number of us were on a call with Dr. Box, who is the head of the State Department of Health, outlining new programming, new money available throughout the state. And one of the things that we're doing, a number of us are working with IU Health, our health department, to try to find a way to get some significant grant dollars going. And one of our interests is indeed creating a public-facing treatment, substance use disorder, mental health facility, in addition to what we're going to need inside the jail facility. It would be a separate thing entirely. And it would, we will need to get significant state healthcare dollar buy-in, but the state right now is planning on a significant investment in healthcare dollars for public health. And this is what we're going after. So we're already working on this at the same time that all of this is going on. But it's an important point. So I'm glad it was raised. Thank you.
We actually have another hand raised, Kim Naseth.
Hi, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Kim Naseth. Thank you for having me. I was a housing case manager. I presently do technical assistance, but I was a housing case manager for several years working with people who have been involved in the criminal legal system and supporting them and becoming housed often who have co-occurring health issues such as substance use and disorder and mental illness. I'd like to state, I have read both of the reports, actually multiple times over. And I'm stating that because I felt that there was some defensiveness in this meeting. And I wonder why the council is feeling so defensive around different opinions and input around alternatives to the jail, or things that the council could be doing in addition with taxpayer money. That was a bit concerning and disappointing to me. So I would just really encourage more discussion around that and why the feeling of defensiveness seems to be, at least that's my perspective, coming up. I'd like to note that mandated treatment in jail is coercive and does not work. A study from Boston University in 2016 it's called, the study is mandatory treatment is not effective at reducing drug use. It violates human rights. I'd be happy to send the committee a link to this. While I applaud the county's interest in wanting to expand treatment services, spending over $70 million on a new jail is not the way to do this. Rather, I urge the county to invest in services such as increased housing and community-based treatment that reduce arrests in the first place. We know that when people get access to treatment and resources they need, more readily, arrests decrease, rather than if we provide treatment to people when they're in jail, which is really, that's still jail. You're taking away people's constitutional rights. Then the arrest will just not be needed in the first place. I just, instead of spending so much time on best practices around ways to cage people, I implored the county council to investigate other ways to transform our legal system. I've heard the reference of Sam Quinones many times in these meetings and wish to elevate the voices of Angela Davis, Ruth Wilson Gilmore, Alex Vitale, and Victoria Law, experts in this field. And while I appreciate data collection efforts, more needs to be done now. I'd like to hear more about the ways Monroe County is planning to use alternatives to incarceration. The Eve Hill report states Monroe County must prioritize alternatives to incarceration for violation of court-imposed requirements for substance use violations, etc. And I just like to note, drug court often punishes people for recurrence of use, and this is not helpful. My time is up, but I thank you.
Thank you. And yes, please come to the microphone up here.
Hi, my name is David Bramlett. I just had a couple questions. I chose to come to Amethyst House in Bloomington because of the recovery community here, and I plan on making my life down here. I was wondering why you guys don't invest in the sober living community. I mean, the recovery community, I've only been here a short time, and the recovery community here is, they open their arms and they want you to be here and they want to help. So like Amethyst House, you have them, you have Courage to Change, you have all these opportunities to invest money in and bring them up, bring them up on a pedestal, because if they can get what I can get out of it. And I've been incarcerated where I had to go through programs, and the last lady was right. When you're in jail and they're telling you have to do it, you do it, but you're not putting all your heart into it. Now, if you're out here and you choose it and you want to do that, I mean, it makes so much more of a difference to do that. I mean, I think you guys should really look into backing like Amethyst House or Courage to Change, dumping money into them. I mean, I understand you have to build a new jail. I get that. I understand how that is, because Marion County just did the same thing. And Marion County they're failing right now because they didn't include treatment in theirs. And it's a mess up there. So I just think you guys should look into backing some of these sober living houses and stuff like that here. That's all I have.
Yeah, that's certainly some of what we're hoping to look into. And we have set some money aside for that. One of the things that's going to be a very important aspect of all of this is going to be some kind of transitional housing, so that people don't just get put back on the streets.
I think that would work.
And hopefully, I mean, we're still working hard on housing for the homeless. So
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else? Jen, is anyone else on Zoom?
Not that I
Nope.
see.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like to say something?
6 right now.
And it's almost 6, so you'll probably be the final speaker for tonight.
The last word.
Hi, I'm Tiernan Randall. Peter Iveson mentioned reading the report. So I'm going to read a quick excerpt from the Ken Ray report, page 84, chapter 5, facility assessments, and subsection B, key findings and recommendations. This is point 4. Monroe County officials should take immediate action or immediate steps to study the feasibility of maintaining the current facility. At a minimum, the study should compare the capital, maintenance, and operational costs of updating and repairing the current facility to make to a much better designed facility that accommodates public safety and justice outcomes according to the community needs and values. And so this report was released over a year ago, and I'd like to ask the committee, why hasn't that study been commissioned?
Well, basically, we do not see the entire justice building is problematic. And the way the jail is configured there makes it much, much more expensive to run. So while we're talking about a lot of money to build a new jail, we actually see a very big possibility of saving a lot of money, both by hopefully keeping people out of jail and having a jail that is designed for efficiency and then requires much less in the way of staff to run it.
Yeah, our focus is on, if our focus is on treatment, we don't have the space in the current building to do that as much as we'd like. And Sam can attest to that, and he's already spoken to that issue. I think one of the things to remember is that we, outside of the studies, we are under a legal suit regarding the jail, the current jail, and what happened in Vigo County, Terre Haute, is that they delayed too long building a jail. The feds have come in and have built a jail for them, which is much bigger than they probably wanted. And the taxpayers are paying the price. And there's, I don't know that there's as much programming there as we're going to put in. And so that's what we don't want to have happen. We don't want to have somebody else come in here to Monroe County and build a facility that's way bigger than we need and bill the taxpayers for it and not provide any programming and not actually change and reform the system. So that's why we're on the track that we're on. But I appreciate your comment.
I would just like to make one more comment that we have reached out to the ACLU, and they have stated they have no intention of pursuing the county anytime soon. They have much more pressing matters in the abortion and whatnot.
That's mostly because they are aware of the fact that we're making real efforts now. That, you know, if we just continued on with the status quo, then they would be pursuing us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, it's now 6 o'clock. If you would please leave a comment online.
Or they're just not a way, since we can make, I'd hate for her to stay here for the last, like that can be the final one.
I have time.
All right, I would like to say that you would have to be the final person, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple comments about programming, because everyone keeps talking about programming in the new jail and just of that being a focus point. And I just know many people that have done programming in the current jail and how hard that's been since the pandemic. To just kind of reiterate that I just don't believe that that's really a priority, knowing that all programming was stopped at the beginning of COVID. And only just started up again in the last 2 months, most of it. There was there was Read to Me and that was pretty much it. And then the other thing to remember, I guess, is just that most of the programming is done externally, right? By like these local organizations. So when you're talking about doing programming, I don't really understand what you mean, if you just mean like more rooms. So I guess that's a question, but ultimately, I just don't, yeah, I mean, I think if you really look into this stuff, you'll very easily find that no one is going to heal in jail, and like many others have said. So just want to reiterate that.
Thank you. And with that, I believe we can be adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, please. do.
We're planning to do the tour of
Oh,
Franklin
yes,
County,
I meant to
Ohio
bring that up.
next Friday. So they would like us to be there at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
And I know that's a 4-hour trip. So I don't know if there's a way that, or if people want to try to go the night before and spend the night somewhere close by and get there earlier.
Can you
and-
take people with lights and sirens and get there? Sorry, okay.
Probably not.
Thought I'd ask, just thought I'd ask. Alright.
But I think it will be a good tour, and they have done a lot of design features in that facility that I think will be perfect for this county. But it's kind of up to everybody that is wanting to go. If they want to try to go the night before, we can try to make arrangements. Or if they want to try to get up early that morning and go, it's going to be a long day.
How many people have you heard from at this point?
Maybe 8,
8. Okay.
something like that.
I suggest that we take this up over email
Okay.
and make a decision hopefully by the beginning of next week.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay.
Figure out how we're gonna survey people. Like, that's what I thought these folks were gonna do.
I did, yeah.
So we're gonna have to figure that out.